nice to see you. It's been a fabulous week. I'd like to thank everybody that has contributed to my vlog. I've had loads of encouragement and lots of enthusiasm, and it's been really lovely, so genuinely thank you very much. That's fab. My week this week, I've had a busy one. I went out and collected the last of the blackberries because I make jam, like to make blackberry jam at this time of the year. And I've helped look after some of my grandchildren. I've had some to tea, and I have to say that I'm waiting. I had the phone by my bed last night waiting to hear about my 6th grandchild that's about to be born, and I can't wait to meet him. Okay, right, so today I want to talk to you about mealtime wars, basically. I have visited many parents in the past who I've gone in there and they've said, oh my Lord, this child will not eat anything, and tea time has become an absolute nightmare. All we do is argue and shout, and I know what that feels like. I can remember doing it myself. I had a very fussy eater when mine were little, and I remember going to the doctors and saying, he doesn't eat anything and I don't know what to do. It's very worrying, and I'm at a loss as how to help him. And the doctor said to me, is he lethargic? Is he just lying on the sofa? And I said, well, no. I said, he runs around, you know, with the rest of them and everything's fine. And he said, well, he must be eating something then. And he was, even if it was just a mouthful, and he told me not to stress. And of course, this was long before I ever trained to do what I do today or be involved with working with lots of children. And so I tried my best to do that, but it is very difficult. Food is linked to emotions a lot of the time. Some people don't eat when they're stressed, some people do eat when they're stressed. I'm one of the ones that eats when they're stressed. You know, the first thing I do is when I've got a lot on my plate is I reach for the chocolate biscuits and a cup of tea. And it's very difficult to control that because I know I do that. And I've no idea whether it stems from being young or not, but I can remember if I was fed up when I'd come in to my mum moaning about something or other, and she'd say, let me make you your favourite tea. So who knows? I don't know if that's where it comes from, but I do know that being a feeder is something I learned from very young, because one of my first memories, early memories, I must have been under 4, and I was at home with my dad. Everyone else was out, and he had to say something about, made some comments about being hungry. So I went in the kitchen, I dragged a chair up to the counter, to the tabletop, because I couldn't reach, and I made him crackers with jam on, and I took them into him, and because obviously he loved me, he ate them all, made a fuss, licked his fingers, all those sort of things, and told me how wonderful they were. And I sat there with this warm glow in my heart and thought, this is marvellous. I loved it, and I gave him a big kiss. And from that day forward, I think that's why I love to feed. I love to feed everyone. So anyone that comes to my house always gets a dinner like that. It's always a big dinner. And if the children ring up and say, I'm coming around for a cup of tea and a natter, the first thing I do is get straight in the kitchen and make a batch of scones. I can't help myself. So we all have things from when we're young, which then brings me on to that whole subject of children. And children are only in charge of 2 things when they're very young, and that's pooing and eating. And the more you argue and fuss and plead with children to eat, the more likely they are to go the other way. Some parents have said, you know, the breakfast time's their flashpoint because they're all trying to rush to get ready for school, and you've got this child, a fussy one, who's sort of playing about with his breakfast and never eating it. And, you know, the main thing to do is to sort of hopefully have a try at what I'm going to suggest and see how you go. So if we go right back first to babies, and of course when we wean them, one of the good things to do is to make sure you give them lots of different flavours and tastes, so that when they're older you're not just plonking in front of them food that they've never had any flavour of before. So if they're already used to flavours, right from being young, then that solves that problem. A good thing to do is to buy yourself a blender, and every time you make a meal from scratch, whether it just even be mince and mash with carrots, to a Sunday dinner, spaghetti bolognese, all sorts of different things that you can do, put some to one side and throw it all in the blender each meal, and then freeze it into little pots and put them in the freezer, and then you can pull them out to give the baby each time they need a food. And of course, you're saving yourself a fortune, because those little tiny jars in the supermarket cost money, whereas if you're all just saving a little bit of your dinner every time and putting it into little pots in the freezer, you're saving yourself some money as well. Plus they're getting used to the sort of food that you eat. So that's a good one to do. My little granddaughter, Elsie Rose, one of her favourite puddings, well, her dinner is spaghetti bolognese. And then she likes, her mum makes, puts a pear and an apple in a pan with a knob of butter and stews it down, warms it through and stews it down. And then she puts it into pots and brings it out with some natural yoghurt. And Elsie absolutely wolfs it down. She loves that. And there's no hidden ingredients in there. It's just beautiful, you know, natural food. Then when you get to older children, now if you've already got a fussy eater, this is sort of where hopefully the ideas come in. So if your child, you know your child likes one particular thing, then perhaps you could put a little bit of that on the side of the plate alongside all the other food that they eat. And when you all sit down to have your lunch or your tea, then all sit there as you normally would and get on with your meal, and try your best not to say anything about the way they're eating, okay? It's different if they're getting up or moving about. In that case, if you've got another child that's behaving at the table, then praise them for sitting there nicely, because then that might encourage the other child to do that. So you could say, well done, Jack, for sitting nicely eating your tea, okay? But the child that is fussy and won't eat, resist if you can saying anything. If they haven't eaten anything, then at the end of the meal, when everyone else is finished, you literally just take all the plates away. And you don't say anything, but that child doesn't get a pudding. You don't say anything. You don't say, well, you haven't eaten your tea, so you're not getting a pudding. You just put the pudding down in front of everybody else and carry on, if they're having a pudding. And then the thing to do after that is, if that child hasn't eaten anything, no snacks for anybody. So I know it's difficult if you've got other children that have eaten, but while you're trying to do this, try not to give any snacks at all in between meals. Because you can't give to some and not to that one. So they all have to do without, basically, while you're trying to sort this out. So no snacks. And then you do the next meal and you go through the same process again. You don't say anything, you just put the meal down in front of them. If they've eaten one mouthful, even if it's the thing that you put on the side of the plate that you know they like, then go with that. Don't say anything, but accept that they've eaten that. And what you will find over time, if you ignore that behaviour while they're sitting there and not eating, instead of sort of pleading and moaning and all those things that we do and shouting because they haven't eaten the tea, will go away eventually, because they're not there isn't the power struggle going on anymore, if you see what I mean. And so what you'll find then is that eventually, with time and the right habits around the table, so that's no mobile phones, no tablets, no TV on, all the things that distract us from eating, and having a nice conversation about how everybody's day has gone is actually probably the best way to go. Now then, another thing you can do, oh, and just before I go, the last thing you should also do is don't leave them sitting there. I've known parents do this, with an icy cold tea for hours on end and making them sit there trying to eat it. It doesn't work, believe me. But trying to force a child to eat is never going to work. So please don't do that. Just clear the table and carry on, and just keep what you're thinking inside. Don't have a scream outside somewhere away from the kids if it's that frustrating, but try not to show it in front of the children. The other thing you could do is involve them in the whole process. So you could ask the fussy eater, what shall we have for tea? You could go let them come with you to the supermarket, pick the food. You could get all the children involved in actually cooking the tea, making it, preparing, getting the table ready, the whole involvement of making the tea in the first place. So that way they're involved in the whole process before they even eat the tea, and that can be quite a good idea to do, so do try that one. The other one is to get them all to draw a picture, either something related to tea. It could be, could say, right, draw me a plate and put on that plate the sort of things you like to eat. And so they're drawing it, even if it doesn't really look like a plate, that doesn't matter, they know it's a plate. Or a picture of themselves. So here's one I've done earlier, if you like Blue Peter. So here's the picture of me, okay, and here's the picture of the plate. Okay, so get them to do one of these, or each and every one of them can do one, so you're making it into a bit of fun, all right? And then stick them up where they're going to be eating their tea. Okay, so we can stick them up there, like so. And then if they've managed to eat, whoever's eaten the tea gets a tick, okay? If the child, the fussy eater, at least manages one spoonful, they've made the effort, and try and give them give them a tick. So that child gets a tick. And you could even make it some competitions, like the person who's eaten the most first will get to choose the pudding. At the end of the week, if you've got a tick for every night after tea or for every meal, they could choose a DVD that they're going to watch on TV after tea, or something nice, some small reward for doing it, okay? Or choosing the next night's tea or a pudding. That can be quite a good idea as well. So there are lots of things. Use your imagination. You can use stickers, anything like that, to get them to encourage them to eat the tea. But try not to get into that whole scenario of getting worked up over them eating their tea. All right? Unless they become lethargic and they're laying on the sofa and they haven't eaten for weeks on end, then you've got a problem. It's time to go to the doctors. But if they're still running around and they're eating at least one mouthful of something in a day, then you needn't worry too much, okay? Try some of the ideas and see how you go. Please leave me some comments on the site and under my video, and let me know how you're getting on. It takes at least 3 weeks to change a habit. That's for anybody. So one of the secrets of anything you're going to try, or any of the ideas that I'm going to give you over the next so many weeks, is that you have to be consistent. It is really important. It's no use halfway through the week when you're tired, you've been to work, you've cooked everyone's tea, you've got this fussy eater and really want to strangle them, well, not literally, but you want to shout and bawl at them. Please refrain from doing that and try and keep up with the ideas that I'm giving you, because it does take time. Nothing happens overnight. It takes time. I hope this has helped, and I'd like to try a new subject next week, or if you've got any comments, put them underneath when you've subscribed and I will try and answer them for you. Or anyone else can put some ideas on there. That would be wonderful if we could get some new ideas on there so that we can try them all, and I'll bring them up next time I speak to you. Next week I might do an earlier one because I've got my nephew coming over from Germany, and so I'll be busy next weekend. So I'll probably do one in the middle of the week to follow on. Lovely to talk to you all, and I hope to speak to you again soon. So take care, lots of love, bye.